Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's broadcast from the Marin Symphony. It's my pleasure in our ongoing series of exploration of our orchestra musicians to welcome this week as my guest, the fourth horn of the Marin Symphony, Alicia Mastromonaco. Hi, Alicia, and good to see you.
Hi, Alasdair. It's good to see you too. Thanks for having me do this today.
Absolute pleasure. So I guess we'll start with the current circumstances. What have you been up to lately that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I'll tell you, these last 7 months have been quite a different pace for me, quite a different lifestyle for me than the last 15 years of my life as, freelance musician and working towards a lot of different goals. So I've used this time to really try to take advantage of some of the things that I've been wanting to do but haven't been able to due to travel schedules, working schedules, all of that. So one of the things that I've been able to do is actually foster cats, which is a new experience for me. I used to foster German Shepherds when I lived in LA, but my partner really loves cats, and we've been lucky enough to foster 5 so far.
Wow,
So
that's amazing. I'm just, you said formerly in LA there was the German Shepherd, so I'm assuming there's not cohabitation between the German Shepherds and the cats at this point?
not yet. We're hoping to get a dog at some point, but we started off by fostering because we wanted to really get a feel for lots of different cats and their personalities, and also just alleviate the pressure from the shelters at a time when both of us are working from home. So the cat we have now is actually a rescue from the third horn in the symphony, Meredith Brown. So she is a huge cat lover and a good friend of mine. So this cat, who was formerly known as Daddy Cat because of his girlfriends in the neighborhood and their many progeny, found his way into Meredith's backyard, and she trapped and neutered him and finally realized that he wasn't feral at all and asked us to give him a home for a little while, and we've fallen in love with him. So I think we're going to keep him. But we've now called him Bongo because he has little white paws that look like a bongo player. So
That's so sweet. Sounds just a little bit more, I don't know, slightly cleaner than Daddy Cat.
Yeah. It's a great name, and he's he's got a lot of character, but we felt that maybe it was a little rude to call him that when he no longer has the capability to become
Right,
Daddy again.
exactly. Sort of a little too on the nose.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we've been fostering cats, and another thing that I've been able to do is a lot of gardening, which is not possible when you're, gone every weekend or weeks at a time sometimes. And then another thing that I've been really falling in love with is making sourdough. And I've gotten on the bandwagon. It's the total cliche, but I love it. And there's like a special joy about giving somebody a freshly baked loaf of homemade sourdough that I think, yeah, we all kind of need that in the pandemic.
Yeah, little moments of joy. Bringing joy through baking goods is some of the best way, whether it's bread or cake, my particular weakness. But yeah.
Yeah, I've been making a
Absolutely.
lot of that too.
Let's talk about music for a little bit. Also, as part of your origin story, I guess, you are from the Bay Area, and this is, while you're a member of the Marin Symphony now, this isn't your first part of being a Marin Symphony family member, is it?
No, yeah. I was able to be in the Marin Symphony Youth Orchestra for my final year of high school. And it was just such a fun experience to be in this youth orchestra, which was very different from the San Francisco Symphony Youth Orchestra, which was much more serious, very, very different brass section, because most of the brass players at that time were students at the San Francisco Conservatory. So they were all older brass players, and being in the Marin Symphony Youth Orchestra allowed me lots of different opportunities. And one of the major opportunities was actually winning the concerto competition. So I got to play the Strauss First Horn Concerto with the youth orchestra as sort of the last musical event, or one of the last musical events of high school. So that was such an exciting time for me to be in that youth orchestra and have a lot of fun with it.
Was that the first time you played a concerto?
Yes. Yeah,
So
it
how did
was.
that, I mean, how did that feel? Because violinists are, I guess, slightly more used to doing that, but wind players generally don't get up in front of the orchestra, as opposed to, for instance, playing first horn solo, which can also be a very high pressure environment. Did you respond to it happily, or is it a little too stressful?
It was stressful. I do remember being very scared and very nervous about it, particularly because I was kind of newer to the horn. I started playing the horn when I was 12, but until I was 16, I was in the San Francisco Girls Chorus and was really dedicated to singing. And it wasn't until after my sophomore year of high school that I decided, you know what, I really want to try to do more with the horn. And that's when I auditioned for the San Francisco Youth Orchestra and
So
started with
when,
that.
why the horn in the first place? I mean, you mentioned the singing, but how did the horn fall into your hands?
So it's kind of a strange story. I come from a very musical family. My grandmother is an amazing pianist who started working professionally at 16 in ballet studios in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And her father was a radio cellist in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So I come from a really musical family, and I started on piano and then singing and then trumpet. And I had originally wanted to play the trombone, but my dad said, why don't you do the trumpet instead? And then because I thought the trumpet was boring because everyone played the trumpet, I wanted to switch to the tuba. But then my mom said, no, that's too big. I'm not carrying that around. So finally, in sixth grade, yeah, it was sixth grade, my uncle had actually played the horn in high school. So my family lives out in a rural property in St. Helena, and they fished out my uncle's old French horn, a single B-flat horn con, from a barn. It was stored in a barn somewhere. They picked it out, found it, brought it to me, said, play it, and I sounded horrible, and they said, great, that's your new instrument. So that's how I started on the French horn. But I quickly really fell in love with it, fell in love with the sound, of course. That's what everyone falls in love with. And it was the hardest instrument I had tried so far. It was so difficult for me. And maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I decided that I really wanted to get better at the horn. So that's why I stuck with it.
I'm interested that you thought that it was so hard to begin with, because I would have figured you'd have a little bit of a leg up having had some experience on the trumpet. But did that not really help at the end of the day, or were you just being hard on yourself when you said it was tough?
I was probably being a little bit hard on myself. Yeah, I mean, I think from singing and from piano and having a basis in theory and understanding a little bit of harmony, and then having the brass chops, or, as much as one has when you're a sixth grader, that all helped. But it's I feel like even today it's such a learning curve, and I've got so much room for improvement, and that's the joy of it.
Absolutely, no. We're all feeling that. Every day there's something new to learn, and as long as you're open to it, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier in the introduction that you were specifically the fourth horn in the Marin Symphony. And I wonder if you could just talk to us a little bit about what that position means, because in general, there are four horns that make up a section. There are numerous exceptions to that rule. But how is the fourth horn set apart from other positions in the section?
Well, as some people who are listening to this might already know, in the horn section, we generally come in pairs. So the first and the second horn are a pair, and the third and the fourth horn are a pair. And it's paired by high and low. So first is high, second is low, third is high, fourth is low. And so with that spectrum, the fourth horn is the lowest horn in the section and is sort of the base of the horn section, the base melody, the bass notes of the horn section. So the way I think about playing fourth horn, which is in many ways my absolute favorite horn position to play, is thinking of myself as sort of a wannabe tuba. And maybe that's just my dreams of having been wishing I had been a tuba player in some ways. But I love playing fourth horn because we get to be often the root of the chord or the bass part of the chord. And even though we're listening to the first horn player and matching the pitch that way, it's somehow, for me, the easiest to get in tune because I get to listen to the basses in the orchestra. I get to listen to the tuba and sort of match all of that. And so by feeling like I can be part of the orchestra and also part of the section, it's a really fun sort of interaction with the rest of the orchestra for me. I think other people might describe it differently.
No, that makes all the sense in the world. And I suppose if one were to look at an equivalent of the woodwind section, it would be the second bassoon. The same idea that you're the bass note for a section, and in some cases it's just the horns for you, but also you can be blending with the trumpets as well, or the trombones. But as you say, you're so often the lower, the bass of the harmony, and which is a different kind of pressure, I imagine, than playing first horn, where you're dealing with all the. I mean, one of the reasons that the horn is so hard, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that the higher up you go, the closer the partials are together, and it's the closer you have to stick the landing, or the more accurately you have to stick the landing. If you have to be on a dime, and because if you're off that dime, you're off by a note, and everybody knows.
Right.
So that immediate pressure of playing the high solos, but on the other hand, you're carrying a different sort of pressure.
Yeah, I would say that if playing high horn is like landing on a dime, then playing low horn is finding the exact center of a swimming pool. Because when we play low horn, the notes and the partials are farther apart, but that also means that the possibility of the note you can hit is much wider. So, and that's one of the, this idea, we can see it going all the way back to the Beethoven horn sonata, which would have been played on a natural horn, and the musician would have had to lip down, meaning with chops alone, not playing a different partial, a fourth below an actual note. So the variance in notes is a fourth, which is pretty wide.
Yeah, that's a very wide swimming pool. Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's absolutely fascinating. And of course, it's worth, you mentioned that, but just go back a little bit on the evolution of the horn, because you refer to the natural horn, and there's a very important part of the plumbing that changed in your instrument around the 19th century compared to when Beethoven was writing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. Well, the French horn with our valves, as you mentioned, Alasdair, is a 19th century sort of invention. Not sort of, it's a 19th century invention. So before that, what horn players would play is what we call now a natural horn or a hand horn, which didn't have any valves. And if you wanted to change keys, you would have to take out a length of tubing called a crook. Say your crook was in F, you would have to take that out and insert another crook to get the right harmonic series to play in the correct key. And in order to change pitches outside of the harmonic series, you would have to use your right hand to change essentially the length of the tubing. So it's a completely different technique of playing the instrument. Rather than using our left hand to press down the valves, we use our right hand to sort of subtly change the harmonic series. It's a lot of fun to play. I love playing the natural horn.
That's so interesting, and thanks for giving us that insight into the horn evolution, and also thank you for this wonderful conversation. I'm so enjoying chatting with you. The only thing that would be better is if we could be doing this in person, but as we all know, we're having to wait that out patiently. But it's been really lovely to have our audience get to know you a little bit better, and thank you for all of that.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Alasdair.
Be well and take care. See you soon, I hope.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. Hope we get to make some music together sometime in the new year.
We will.
Good.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.